Welcome to Reunite with Self podcast. I'm your host, Ruken. Here, we will be discovering and unraveling what is truly holding you back. We will put the puzzle together and give you clarity on how and what you can do to create massive shifts in your life so you start creating the life you always envisioned for yourself. No more waiting. Whether it is liberating from dysfunctional family patterns or parenting tools and tips that actually make the difference, we will be diving into the truth and core of things that are simple and yet which no one talks about. I will be sharing with you all the things that would have changed my life massively if I heard any one of these episodes. A new world is awakening, and true bliss, harmony, and peace is possible on this earth. And my mission is to bring you closer to that one step at a time. In this safe space, I will hold your hand and give you courage and certainty that you can shift anything and everything in your life. It is time we break the pattern. Whether you want to be the parent you never had or make a shift in your life so you don't play small any longer, you will find the support and guidance in this space. My intention is for you to find your own answers within yourself while you listen to this podcast, so you feel the bliss of reuniting with your true essence, with self, with so much love and compassion and courage. From my heart to yours, let's keep it rocking. My gorgeous listener, welcome to another episode on Reunite with Self podcast. I am so happy that you're here, so grateful that you're tuning in. I'm sure this is going to be a very powerful episode if you had any narcissistic dynamics, any narcissism in your romantic relationships, if you were aware of any of that or are becoming aware of any current or past romantic relationships. So I took a lot of notes today, and I want to do this episode for my amazing, gorgeous listener, Laura, that we nicknamed Laura together. I nicknamed her. I nicknamed her this. So I want to, she has written me beautiful messages a while back, and I was going through it, and I wanted to focus today just on the romantic relationship side to narcissism. And there is a lot of things I want to talk to you about. So let's get into it. By the way, if you would have any questions to me, any topic suggestions, please always feel free to DM me at Kevela. And dear Laura, I love that you have asked me such clear questions. And I've been creating even more clarity around the relationship that I always talk about with the narcissism in family, the family you come from, and how it reflects on your romantic relationships as a result. So I will just read a part of Laura's message and then we'll begin on everything. So Laura, and a while back, messaged me about like a month, let's say, or two. She was in a part of her message, she was talking about how she was attracting the same kind of people in her life. And she says, I remember you saying that people in narcissistic families will attract narcissistic romantic relationships, and I couldn't see how I would want to be in a relationship with someone like that, but I did, in the most unlikely person. So all I attract is betrayal over and over again, and it feels like there are no safe people. I have some questions that you could answer in a podcast if you want. So yes, let's get into this. I haven't done a lot of romantic relationships episodes on the podcast for a reason, because I will give some examples of what I've been learning from I'm not a psychotherapist or anything, but like any other therapist or psychologists that talk about narcissism. But the thing that I really don't like is, and I don't see a lot around if it's not like specifically asked, is that
Yes, we hear a lot about narcissistic relationships on social media or the support we get from like therapists and psychologists and so forth. But what I don't like in that conversation, what's really misleading and missing in the conversation is what I believe is that I will repeat again here. So let's begin with this. I believe narcissistic relationships in your adult relationships, narcissistic tendencies in your adult relationships are a result of narcissism in your family, the family you come from. I've never seen this any other way. And this might seem like someone pretending or in denial or saying that they had a good family. We will talk about this here, but there needs to be good and the bad, meaning like healthy and very unhealthy patterns in order for it to work as narcissism in your life, like for it to manipulate and control you and to have the influence over. And that's why this reflects on your relationships as you become an adult, in your friendships, in your coworkers, maybe as your boss, or if you are an employer, your employees, in your team, and most importantly, and most commonly in your romantic relationships. Like you will have experience of narcissistic tendency in your romantic relationships with your girlfriend, boyfriend, or with your wife or husband or your partner for sure. If you had narcissistic tendency, I mean, I don't want to say it like this. No, I want to say it like this. If you have any narcissism in your romantic relationships, you for sure had narcissism in your family, the family you come from, like for sure. But it can be, seen, unseen. Like I don't like to use the other words. Like I don't really believe that, but what I have seen in my life experience, or I'm not really like aware of them a lot, so I just use like different words to specify like what kind of narcissist. But the narcissist that I know that really work on other people is the one that they do with subtitles. They're not the extreme ones that you would see from outside and say they are a narcissist. They're usually the good and the bad coexist for it to work. We'll talk about this. And that's why you attract these people in your romantic relationships as a result. But what I don't really like in these conversations is that people talk a lot about narcissism in romantic relationships, and we should definitely talk about it. We should definitely take actions on it like today, if not yesterday, for sure. Like there's no doubt about that. But what I really don't like is that ending that relationship is not going to solve your problem. Like what's more important for me is that, of course, you be safe, you like end the relationship yesterday, like 10 years ago, for sure. Like you do whatever is possible. Like right now, you take the actions for sure. We'll talk about that on another episode, not this one. For sure. Like there is no question about it. But what I don't like is that what's more important for me is that you have a fulfilling life. So if you are not going to see the narcissism in your family after you get divorced or break up with this person, you're not going to feel fulfilled. You're going to live in your past wounds, your history. You're going to still be maybe angry with your ex. You're still going to not fulfill your life, like fulfill your dreams, like have a fulfilling life. You're not going to self-actualize. Or for sure, you're going to attract other narcissists in other shapes and forms. Like there is no other way. If you're not going to create clarity about what kind of childhood you had, what kind of teenage years you had, what kind of adult years you had with your parents, with your siblings, from the family you come from, and also your relatives, like it will never be effective. I care about the core reason why. If we take care of that, everything else as a result will become easier. what I'm concerned about is that you have a fulfilling life. So it doesn't matter if you're in the most beautiful relationship, if you're not feeling fulfilled because you're not creating clarity about your family and you're not really seeing your own potential and self-actualizing yourself, then that's not good. That's even more sad. So that's why whenever there is a conversation about any narcissism in romantic relationships, I have to look at your family. You have to look at your family. You have to. This is a must. This is not a coincidence. You don't attract narcissists when you become adults. If you this can never be the case that you didn't have any narcissism in your family and then all of a sudden you start attracting, feeling attracted to, tolerating, accommodating, and having real relationships with a narcissist. That is not possible because of the things that we will talk today. But most importantly, your life will not be on fantasy. And you will have great discernment because your information will be based on truth. It won't be based on fantasy. So, and this is, of course, when you have any narcissism in your romantic relationships, this would be a trauma bonding, right? And this is for sure you had a trauma bonding with your mom, dad, both different ways, with your sibling, your brother, your sister, for sure. There were things going on for effing sure. There is no doubt for me. And you can have the most loving people in your family. They might love you for days. It doesn't matter how much they love you, how much they care for you, how much they provide you, how much they show their love to you, how much of a healthy, happy family you had. It doesn't change anything for me. I have to look deeper. There was something that you were not seen in over and over again, like a pattern, not once or twice. It was a big thing in your life, a big pattern where you were maybe not seen, not heard, not felt enough, not felt worthy. You were just not seen in something, in a pattern that your mom and dad or any other sister, siblings, were doing or not doing. There was something for freaking sure. There was no willingness from their side to see you and validate your feelings about certain something for sure. Maybe they were doing something in an extreme way that you were not feeling seen and they were not looking into your eyes to see the nature of that child, to give her or him whatever he or she needed in times of repair even. That was not that was not existing. So in a trauma bonding, there are a couple of things. One of the most important things in trauma bonding in your family, and which reflects on your romantic relationships, is that there is inconsistency. We'll talk about this. And there is the good and the bad. So it's never black or white. That's why I always remind you of this with compassion, so that you don't fall into your own trap. You don't self-sabotage in the process of creating clarity. There has to be the good, or good and bad. You know what I mean? The healthy and the unhealthy. There has to be the white and the dark. There has to be. It has to exist. Both of them has to exist for it to work. Because if it did not exist, if it was all dark, if it was all bad, then you maybe would have disassociated from that, left home when you were maybe 18, and you would have more progress in your life. Because you would be sure, and the people around you, maybe other relatives or friends, they would give you the validation that, yes, there is something really effed up here. You have to go. You should never take advice from them. You should never talk about these important things with them. You should never, ever think that what they've been telling you is the truth. It's not true. They're lying. It's a big lie. It's not the truth about the things that they're telling you about your worth. It's not the truth. your abilities, your capabilities, your enoughness, your worthiness, what you can do, what you can't do, what you did was wrong, what you did was right. How they are portraying you is not the truth. You would have gotten that support, and that would have saved your life, literally. But we don't have that support. So people can focus on your romantic relationship and maybe give you advice. Yeah, this is like effed up. Like this person is not treating you right. But what I was really frustrated in my life was that people could say that to me, but they could never support me in my family stuff. It was so obvious, so obvious. Now looking back, if I was witnessing myself as a friend, I would like give her a hug and just see her like it was so obvious, so obvious. But there was a lot of good and there was a lot of bad, and that's why it worked. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked. It has to work like this. And this is why we'll talk about like why you accommodate, enable, attract the people in your romantic relationships and why it becomes like how it becomes natural and normal to you and familiar to you, and how you can create excuses for them easily and spend more time in those kind of like in those dynamics more than someone who would not have anything like that in their family, the family you come from, and they would have discernment and the information they think about would be based on truth, not like fantasy or potentiality, or they wouldn't be interested in like creating excuses for them before creating the clarity. I want to talk about this thing of why it's important to create the clarity in family when we have narcissism in our romantic relationships. Because we do get hurt a lot when we are in any kind of narcissistic relationship. And or like when we meet someone and they're being narcissistic to us, but we still keep them in our lives. For us to become connected to the part of us that hurts, like you feel hurt when someone does something or doesn't do something. You feel hurt in the romantic relationship, but it's very important to understand that we hold the hurt somatically in our bodies from the past. And romantic relationships are a great way to understand what happened in your past as a child, like in the family you come from. And when you become connected to that part of you that feels the hurt, you understand why it hurts. This is very important because we hold the pain somatically. So it is not even about the relationship, the romantic relationship. Because if it wasn't something familiar to us, like I always say, we attract and we accommodate and we enable and we find excuses for things that are familiar to us. If it's not familiar to us from our families, then we wouldn't waste a day. Like, I don't know, maybe you would go on a date with someone, maybe, okay? I don't even think that you would, but maybe like you would go on a date and then it would be something you talk about, like, in a sentence 40 years later because you never had an experience like that ever again. You wouldn't spend another day trying to understand why they're doing what they're doing, why they're behaving the way they're behaving. You wouldn't be interested in finding excuses for them. You wouldn't be interested in them, period. Like, I think I talked about this before, but this is very important to understand. I heard this from a Turkish guy that I really love, like I really respect. He's a behavioral, what is it called? Therapist. Like, he's incredible. And the way he explains this is so, like, makes so much sense to me. And I think I said this on a previous episode, but I'm not sure. he says, like, when people ask him, like, why did I attract this guy? Why did I attract this woman in my life? Like, why do I keep attracting these people? Like, why would I choose that person? He says, subconscious works so wildly. Like, it works so good. Subconsciously, unconscious, they might put, if you are a woman, heterosexual woman, and they put 100 men in front of you, you would go and pick the one that will really, really, really F you up if you had any narcissistic tendency in your family. You go and pick that one, and you don't know why that is. You even feel sexual attraction to that person because you haven't created the clarity about your family yet. Like, you don't know why you're attracted to that person, but your subconscious chooses the one that will really hurt you. And I believe that if you are someone, if we're talking about someone that hasn't created any clarity about what's really happening in their lives with their families, like what's been happening with their family, that person is like a gift. They come to your life, they slap you on the face, like they destroy you. They are very destructive. They do everything to hurt you so deeply, but they're always screaming this, like, look what you're tolerating. Look at yourself, like, look what you're tolerating. Is this your worth? Look at what you're familiar to. Look how you can make excuses for me while I'm not even making an excuse sometimes. Like, you are making that excuse. You are tolerating this. You are accommodating this. Look at what your standard is for your relationships. Look at how you see your worth. They're like, of course, like subconsciously, they're like screaming this to you. And the sooner you understand, if you really understand, the better, of course. But I've had this experience like in a very traumatic way that I had to wake up. Like, there was no other way. But what I realized is that my romantic relationship and all my romantic relationships, but like specifically the narcissistic ones, were always a result of my family, like always. And they were like gateways. They were gateways, yeah, for me to understand what had been happening, what I'd been accommodating, what's my familiar thing, what's my standard, what was my standard before. And I can never, ever, ever find more beauty in a great relationship if I don't create clarity in my family, in what happened to me, in what I was accommodating in the name of love. I had to create the clarity to have a fulfilling romantic life. Like, this is a must. This is not something that I could negotiate. And the reason that you feel attracted to, tolerate, accommodate, and keep them in your life for as long as you do is because of the stuff that you went through with the family you come from, the family you were raised in. So this is how this person was explaining it. Like, out of 100, you attract that. And the subconscious works so wildly that, of course, like, you go to that place in that moment and they are there at that moment because subconscious knows everything. Like, you do everything for a reason that you're not even conscious of. So, of course, you meet that person in that moment doing that thing, whatever. Like, they come into your life with that seemingly coincidence for a reason. They have to. Your soul wants to heal so much, and your soul wants to grow, and for you to grow and become wiser and do the wiser things so much and understand what true love is, like self-love, and what true love is so much that I believe you have these experiences, but they have to be the gateways for us to understand okay, let me look what happened in my past. Let me not just focus on my romantic relationships and just focus on the drama here, but have the courage, the openness, the honesty, and more courage to look at the family I come from. It's going to require courage because there is good and there is bad. I want to read you a few things that I took notes of. Let me see. Okay, so let's talk about the similarities between and the connections between your romantic relationships, your experiences in those, and how you were treated as a child, like how you were raised in the family you come from. So I took some notes from a YouTube on a conversation with Dr. Ramani, I think that's her name. And I like some of her stuff a lot. Like, my only problem with this stuff is that people usually talk either about the narcissism in family or narcissism in romantic relationships. But I think this conversation was more about the relationship between the romantic relationships and the family you come from. But I think it has to be mentioned like every single time. We don't want men and women going over traumatic divorces and then end up being with a different kind of narcissist, or meeting a wonderful person and not living the potential of that relationship, or them having a great relationship but feeling blah about it, like feeling blah about their life. Like that's like the biggest failure for me. So we have to understand why we're attracting these people in the romantic relationship and why someone would tolerate that for so long. But I liked this conversation, so I watched it and I took some notes. So first of all, for example, she was talking about how, as let's say it's a girl, and the little girl is so unseen and feeling neglected and unworthy, but also this little girl as a child feels scared to be noticed as well. Because they might make you feel like they failed or are unworthy. I took some notes quickly, but what I wanted to talk about here is that this applies to the little girl in you and also what your experience was as a child. So because of this inconsistency and this good and bad in your in your family relationship, is that as a child, you were unseen, feeling neglected, and feel unworthy around the narcissistic parent or parents. And also the other one, that is, if one of them is narcissistic and the other one is not, that's still a problem. And we'll talk about that. That's still not so easy if the other one is not really like empowered. And if they would divorce quickly maybe, or do different things to have you like create clarity fast. But the little girl is like, as a child, she's unseen, neglected, feeling unworthy, and feeling also scared to be noticed, because when the narcissist notices the little girl, as you know, then because of their competition, rivalry, and all of that, then they make you feel like you failed, like you're not worthy, you're not enough. Like they do something to make you feel like who the hell you think you are, like you are nothing. So this is so interesting when you think about the narcissistic relationships, romantic relationships, like either a relationship or a marriage. This is exactly how the person feels, whether it be a man or woman. And I took notes. I want to read this and I want to talk about it. Trauma bonding is a bond that is a sense that you have an unbearable or like difficult to disrupt with someone that's created by a relationship that is chronically alternating between good and the bad. This is so true. And there is the experience, if you paddle faster, you'll earn the other person's love. And they sometimes do show up with that love. And when they do it, it feels like a cold room becomes warm all of a sudden and you feel whole and good. This exactly the experience of a kid having a narcissistic parent. Like, it's alternating between good and bad chronically. And there is the experience, if you paddle faster, you'll earn the other person's love. And they sometimes do show up with that love. And there is the part with like the good and the bad has to exist. And when they do show up with the love, it feels like a cold room becomes warm all of a sudden and you feel whole and good. But then they pull back again. This is exactly a very common type of narcissistic parents' behavior. Exactly. If you look from the child's view, this is exactly what the child experiences. And this is exactly what the child would experience in a narcissistic romantic relationship. Of course. But the good news is that when you create the clarity, there will be no going back. You making the decisions about your family stuff will be so much easier, will become more natural. It won't be even something that you can negotiate. You will go for it. There will be no other way. Things will never be the same again. And of course, you're going to attract different people because your standards are going to be higher. And I think when you show up like that, the universe really gifts you with magic that you can't even fathom. Like when you show to the universe that you can do the hard things that are like courageous, really discomfortable, like really uncomfortable, and really when you're doing it, it's like you're burning the boats. It's scary. But when you show up like that, the universe, you take a step and the universe takes 10 steps towards you. Like then there is magic that you can't even imagine before. Like, this is the only way. The universe cares about your actions. And our lessons are our lessons. Like, that's why the thing that's really difficult is the lesson. The thing that's really difficult to do is the lesson. And also, they were saying, and when they do, it feels like a cold room becomes warm all of a sudden, exactly the feeling in a narcissistic relationship, and you feel whole and good. But then they pull back again. Life sort of becomes this quest to maintain these good moments, and there are good moments. Trauma bonding relationships can look different in adulthood and childhood relationships. In childhood, it becomes this lay of pathways in the brain and in the body in the sense that the primary caregivers, parents, might be variably available. In some cases, they are acutely abusive, and there are still good moments. Exactly. And in other cases, they are simply not available, checked out for various reasons. Exactly. And maybe both as well. Maybe they might be someone that is checked out all the time and they're in and out sometimes. Exactly the narcissistic relationship explanation. This is why it's tricky when you have a narcissistic parent and one is not narcissistic. That one is not there. That one is not that they're not a loving parent, but they're suffering, so they're not available. So the narcissistic parent so they're narcissistic, and the other one might be not narcissistic, but because they don't know how to handle this, they're suffering themselves. There is no way they can be a caregiver to you that is healthy. There is no way that they can support you in that pain and be there for you while they're trying to figure out like what the hell is going on? Like what the heck can I do? And how can I paddle faster to get this confirmation from this narcissistic person, the spouse? So it becomes very, very difficult. And I think I talked about this on an episode, but I would love to do another one just on this. Like, let's say if one of your parents is narcissistic and the other one is not, or you have a child with someone who's narcissistic, like what can you do so that the path is not like how you had it for your child. Because I believe that the problem is not the narcissism itself. The problem is that there is no support in the circles. This is the problem. Because if you chose that parent when you were coming to this life, or it was whatever you believe, or you were given this parent, like there is a reason for it, but there is always a way that you can still self-actualize if there is support, and the faster the better. And I don't want anyone else to lose so much of, like, I lost so much time in every area of my life. I can say every area. Because for me, like, it's all about like living a fulfilling life. It's not about some things being great and some things are not. Like, it has to feel fulfilling to you. It has to make sense. I lost so much time with bullshit, and it was not necessary. And when I look back now, and when I still look at my family, like the larger circle, the problem is not that there are narcissists. I truly believe this, by the way. The problem is not the narcissists. The problem is that there is no support. I can do episodes just on this. I can write a book just on this. My problem was not that there were narcissists. It was a huge problem, of course, huge. But it wouldn't become like mountains in my life if I had figured out faster. It would have even given me my wind to my sailboat, like I say now. Like, I don't care now. Like, bring it on. I'll live my life. I'll self-actualize. I'll go for it. It just gives me strength. But what really sucks is that you don't have any support. Like, when you share, nobody says what's really happening. Nobody gives you the confirmation of there is something wrong here. Please don't expose yourself to this anymore. And please don't feel guilty about it. You might, that's okay. I'll hug you. I'll support you. I'll listen to you. But don't do this anymore. Like, it's just, I don't want anyone else to go through it. Like, this is one of my biggest passions in life right now. I don't care what happened to me. I care about, like, I don't want to let anyone else feel like that for so long and waste so much time. So let's continue. So what I have explained here is this is the exact experience that you have as a child and also in the romantic relationship. And then the one parent might be narcissistic and then the other might not be, but still it's very hard. It's not something I've ever seen that the other parent can be a great support. Like, it would be amazing. And I think it's possible. It's not easy. But really, it creates a huge difference for the child. Huge. That support changes everything. And let's see. And then the experience for the child is that stay in good stead with the problematic parent that's in and out. That back and forth, that alternation between good and bad is how we create the trauma bond. The good moments are there too. So when the moment is bad, you self-blame because there were good moments. By internalizing the reason, it becomes adaptive, because if it's us, then there is something we can fix. If it's the other person, then we're in trouble as a child. And we can't maintain the status quo and the social connection. And for a child, that's a survival need. And for an adult, physiologically, the experience is a survival need, although they can break up. Like, this is exactly like what you experience in a romantic relationship, although that's not the truth, because as a child, the trauma bond is that because there are good moments, that's the rope that you hold on to when the moments are bad, and the bad moments are longer. And for you to be able to survive as a child, you have to like find excuses for sure and try to win them over and be the good kid and pedal faster and do the right thing and trying to figure out like how they're going to feel today. What should I do? How should I behave? How should I do differently so they give me that confirmation? And this is why in a romantic dynamic, like you meet someone and they're being narcissistic, I'm not even talking about a marriage. Like, let's talk about the beginning, and then this continues. Even emotionally, they're in and out. And they're one moment they're abusive, the other moment they're kind of loving. And then this is exactly what you experienced as a child. Of course, you're going to accommodate it. Of course, you're going to waste your time there. By the way, it's never a waste of time. Like, it becomes your strength because it hurts so bad. But I don't want anyone else to go through that stuff confused, like not having any resource when you look for it. And I hope they find this podcast and listen to this episode. Like, there is a way out, and the way out is so much better than before the relationship, because you're going to figure out so many more things about your life so that you start actually creating your incredible life. Like, it's going to give you that momentum that you're going to be like, no more of this, like not 1 second of this. I'm not going to allow anymore. And I'm going to show all the love to my inner child and show compassion to him and her. And I'm not going to allow this to happen one more moment. I'm not going to internalize their stupid behavior and find excuses for them and tolerate it 1 second. I don't have to. I don't even have to prove it to them. And then I wrote, so the disconnect from like not being able to say this is not right, I have to get out of this relationship, that disconnect is a classic example of trauma bond, because you are not used to listening to your body, like discerning like this is not right, there is something wrong here, this is not healthy, this is not love, this is not going to lead to anything, so I have to get out. You being in that in and out, like should I go, should I stay, what should I do, blah blah blah, that waste of energy is a result of the family stuff that you experienced. Because like, think about this, when a parent is being narcissistic to you, and when the other parent, maybe they're not narcissistic, but maybe the other parent asks you to accommodate it with subtitles as you are a child, a baby, a toddler, a teenager, a kid, a child, an adult, they're telling you like, this is love. You have to accommodate it. Like, this is part of life. This is part of love. This is required in relationships. And your narcissistic parent is telling you, I am making you feel this way, and you're staying in here. So of course, like, you're going to accommodate this in your romantic relationships. But if you ask them about the boyfriend or the girlfriend, they may support you 100% to let that go. But they're going to continue doing what they're doing to you. It's not going to change that. You have to change it. You have to create the healthy boundaries. You have to create the clarity. So you know how, like, you understand how double standard it is. They might, and they will probably hold the other one accountable for their mistakes and tell you, yeah, you're right. Like, this is so bad. Like, you have to get out. Or even like talk badly about your partner. But they ask you to accommodate everything that they've done and they want to do if you just let them. So it's very double standard and hypocritical. You can see the patterns like that more easily. The pain is very somatic. It's kept in the body, and we're just reminded of that in the narcissistic narcissistic romantic relationships. In a healthy relationship, your body feels completely different. And I hope that you choose someone that makes you feel your nervous system so regulated, so safe, you feel so whole, you feel so secure, and also have the passion, the love, the excitement, the joy, the fulfillment that you're never used to. That is like a healthy relationship is a very healing thing. But I think it can really happen with that dynamic once we create the clarity with the family. Like, we have to find that courage, because if we don't act with that courage, then like I said, we can never live the potential of a great relationship. Like, it's not possible, because something will be missing in us, because that inner child wants to be seen. She wants to be seen, and she's always ready to be seen. I loved this. She said, in a healthy relationship, conflict happens, but the conflict hits a point of resolution, but it doesn't here. So you can think of the family stuff. There is conflict, but there is never a point of true resolution where the child feels innately secure, safe, totally secure in the totality of that area. Like, I'm not talking about a moment, and I'm sure you understand, in their worthiness, in their enoughness, in what they're capable of, in what's going to happen, in how the person will be accountable for their actions in the future too. That is not ever received. Repair is never really there. So there is never a point of true resolution. And Dr. Ramani says, like, she would ask people in the early stages of in a trauma bonding romantic relationship, she would say, tell me what you like about this person. And the response is like, the response would always be so like vague, out like up in the air, like, I don't know, it's a connection with this person, blah, blah, blah. But she's actually looking to hear, I feel safe with this person. I love spending time with this person. I feel seen in their presence. Like, this is, of course, incredible. This is a healthy relationship. And what's really interesting is that I think when we create the clarity with the family, we solve the thing. We solve the thing. But when we don't create the clarity, it's like the inner child creating the scenario over and over again for our good. And it's the repetition compulsion, trying to solve the same thing out. You're trying to solve the same thing out. You're trying to solve the thing with the girlfriend, boyfriend, but what you're actually doing is trying to solve the thing with your mom and dad. Mom or dad or both. But when you create the clarity about your family, then there is no, like, you don't need to solve it in a relationship. Of course, there will be moments like this journey is a lifetime journey. But what I mean is that, like, being in a narcissistic relationship or not is a very clear thing. It's a very, very clear thing. It's not about like not having any arguments or not having any resistance or not having any conflict. Like, it's never about that. And the betrayal part, dear Laura, that like you were talking about as well, and it can seem like it can look very different things when you say betrayal. In a romantic relationship, betrayal can be many, many, many different things. And how this is really related to your family is that Dr. Ramani explained that day, when someone is not holding up to their side of the relationship, it's a betrayal. So this, again, is very reflective on the family dynamics. And also, I wanted to talk about people with ability of coherent narrative, like not fantasy. It's a coherent narrative. They have better chance of healing and also discernment because it is based on truth. And so you can create this for yourself today, and you can learn more every single day. I'm learning more every single day, and I'm so grateful, and I love it, and I'm becoming more of myself. I'm reuniting with myself, and my intention is for you to realize your own potential and all the potentiality that you can create, like all the amazing relationships that you can create, the amazing romantic relationship that you can create and that you are worthy of and that your soul is yearning for. You don't have to find excuses for your family stuff anymore. And when you stop doing that, it's not going to be possible. You're not going to find excuses for other people's BS. You're going to have discernment. You're going to understand this person is good for me or not fast. You're not going to waste time with whatever. And you're just going to start attracting different type of people because your nervous system will be different. Like you're going to start feeling safer. You're going to feel nourished. You're going to expose yourself to beautiful things. You're going to raise your standards, all the things that we talk about on the podcast. And another thing is that if you had any narcissistic relationships, romantic relationships, or if you are in one, is how this relates to your family stuff is that as a kid, paying attention to data is dangerous for the kids. So you can't pay attention to the data, how your father is behaving, what he's saying to you, what your mother is not doing, how she's neglecting you, how she has the dead face. Like you cannot pay attention to the data because it's really, really not safe. It's very destructive. It's like a survival thing for the child, like a life or death thing. So accommodating is how you get attachment in the family first. And if you don't pay attention to data in your romantic relationships, please look back at your family, the family you come from, and how the parents were behaving in a pattern. So this is all for today. I want to repeat that you can change all of this. You can create a great contrast in your relationships. I see this again. You can create a totally different life for yourself where you feel seen, you feel nourished, you feel held, you feel supported. You don't have to prove yourself. You can feel your emotion, you can express your emotion, and you can create amazing contrast. And that's why that new contrast will be so precious for you. And you're just going to feel so juicy, like you're going to feel fulfilled with your life, like as if you're really creating your life, because you will be creating your incredible life. I love you so much. See you next week.
My gorgeous listener, if you had any takeaways from this episode or from this podcast in general, I would love to know. Please share this episode with a few loved ones right now. You never know how they can benefit from something so small. And please take a screenshot of this episode and share on IG, tagging me at Khewella. That is Khewella. Khewella. That is my goddess wear brand, my Instagram page. I would love to know what your takeaway was, or something you found inspirational, or a confirmation you believe in as well. That would make my day. And you can always DM me if you have a topic or a certain question in mind that you want me to talk about. And give me a 5-star rating if you feel like it. That would help this podcast immensely to get the word out. I love you. See you on the next one. I want to see you shine your brightest.